Hello everyone, today we're making some milk bread, which is also known as oikawa toru from Haikyuu's favorite food. The recipe I'm using for this video is from Inga Lam, but you can also try Emma's Goodies. It's actually very easy to make considering that it's my first time to make bread. Here are the ingredients. I will list them down in the description, but by the way, you can use all-purpose flour and you can use dry active yeast. But you have to bloom it first. For the first step, I'm going to be putting on some flour. It will be best if you have a kitchen scale to ensure the accuracy of your measurement, but I only have some cups, so I decided to use them. And now I'm simply sifting my flour to avoid any lumps, and then repeating the same process since the recipe requires 2 cups of bread flour. But again, you can use all-purpose flour. Now, I'm going to be adding 2 tablespoons of white sugar along with half a teaspoon of salt. You can use ordinary salt, but in this recipe, I used sea salt. Now, whisk the dry ingredients together before pouring in your wet ingredients. The wet ingredient here is milk and some yeast. So now we're going to mix it using a spatula. At first, the mixture will look a bit dry and it will look weird, but trust me, it's part of the process. It will all turn out well in the end. Don't be like me, I almost forgot to add the most important ingredient, which is powdered milk. You can add 1 to 2 tablespoons of powdered milk, but I used 2 tablespoons. And now, simply incorporate it to the dough. And then we'll proceed to kneading. So I advise you to occupy or entertain yourself while you're doing this, since it will take about 10 minutes for us to knead it properly. So I'm just testing out the texture of the dough, and at first it will be very sticky. As you can see, it was sticking on the surface that I was working on, but it will come together eventually. It's important or it's advisable that you have a bread or dough scraper because it will make the job easier, and we can use the dough scraper or the bread scraper later to portion out the dough when we make the actual buns. So just trust the process, just like in life. It might be tempting, but please do not add more flour because as promised, it will come together in the end. And actually, this recipe requires 2 stages of kneading, 10 minutes each. So in total, you will be kneading this bread for 20 minutes. As you can see, this was around the 7 or 8 minute mark, and the dough turned out to be smooth. Although it's not yet at its peak stage or at the stage where it's supposed to be, but then again, this bread requires a lot of patience, and I'm mainly doing this for the love of Oikawa since I love his character. As you can see, the gluten hasn't been activated yet since the dough isn't bouncing back. So the next step of this recipe would be to let the dough rest for about 10 minutes. So take the time to relax, to rest your arms, maybe watch half an episode of Haikyuu, and then go back to kneading your dough. So again, this is all for the love of Oikawa since I've been missing Seijo. Now for the last part, which is to add the butter. You need to use softened butter, as in room temperature butter. It should be very, very soft. And it's gonna get messy, I promise you, but it's all part of it. If you have a stand mixer, that would be great. I actually have a mixer, but I chose to make this by hand for the experience. And since I wanted everyone to be able to make this along with me, since, you know, we all love Haikyuu and we want to taste the favorite food of our characters, you know, to feel like we're part of their world. So there, I'm trying to trap the butter in the dough, but I will fail eventually. I decided to cut it off since it was really messy. And then we'll start kneading again for 10 minutes. Again, put on your favorite song, your playlist, watch a movie or a series, listen to a podcast, think about things, keep yourself entertained while you do this since it's quite a boring process. But my motivation for this was that at least I'll get to taste Oikawa's favorite food, and I even tried smelling it. It smelled great, and it's really fun. It feels fulfilling that you're able to make bread. Now I'm going to be applying oil or putting oil on the bowl, which I'm going to store the dough in for it to rest and to proof. I'm going to be leaving it for 1.5 hours and cover it with cling wrap or a cloth. As you can see, it doubled in size, and now using a dough scraper, I'm going to be dividing the dough into small pieces. You can make 12 to 16 pieces with this dough, and make sure to crimp it or to tuck it under and to roll it underneath so that it can be round. Although mine is not perfect, it's fine. If you have a kitchen scale, that will be better to ensure that every piece is the same. So after 30 minutes, my buns didn't rise. So I left it for another 30 minutes, and that's how they turned out. So you can leave it to rise for 30 minutes to 1 hour. For the final step, I'm going to be sprinkling some cornstarch, but you can also use some flour, and it will give off the milk buns the cutest appearance ever. Now make sure you preheat your oven, and I'm going to be placing it there, 170 degrees Celsius for 15 to 20 minutes. This is how they look like fresh out of the oven, and it was tempting to eat them already, but you have to really let them cool down before digging in. So this is the purpose of the parchment paper. You need to remove it from the pan and place it on a cooling rack so that it can cool down faster and you will be able to eat them much sooner. They look great, I promise you. And for the taste, I will tell you about it later, but look at how soft they are. For the taste, here in the Philippines, we have pandesal or morning buns, breakfast buns, and they taste quite similar. But this one is softer, smoother, and it's amazing, fresh out of the oven. But I also have some suggestions. You can try adding more milk since I didn't taste it that much. And you need to let it stay in the oven for a few more minutes if the top didn't turn brown yet. So that's all for this video. I hope you will be able to make this milk bread and enjoy it as much as I did, and I'll see you next time.